In this video, I'm going to run through with you the basics of multiplying simple radicals. So let's do this first example together. For example, let's multiply radical 3 times radical 5. It's actually not super difficult. We just take the original problem and rewrite both numbers under one radical. 3 times 5, we multiply those, and it's radical 15. And we're done for right now. Next class, we'll learn that sometimes we can go a little further, but for now, this is all we're doing. So let's try the next example together. So radical 2 times radical 6. Now, I know there's no symbol written between these two, but it's an implied times. When you have two radicals crash together, that means they're being multiplied. So we're going to rewrite it as radical 2 times 6, which becomes radical 12, and we'll leave it there. I recommend you pause the video and try the next two examples on your own, and then come back and see if you got them right. So if we do radical 7 times radical 3, that's radical 7 times 3, which is radical 21. And then radical 5 times radical 6 is radical 5 times 6, which is radical 30. Okay, on to multiplying radicals that have coefficients. So here we have 2 radical 5 times 3 radical 7. I'm going to give you kind of the math background of why this works, and then there's sort of the quick trick just to do it quickly. So let's think of this first problem, 2 radical 5 times 3 radical 7. We have some implied multiplication here as well. 2 radical 5 really means 2 times radical 5, and 3 radical 7 means 3 times radical 7. So first I wrote it out with all those implied multiplication signs written in. Then I used some commutative property, which says that if I'm multiplying, I can change the order, to put the two coefficients next to each other, the 2 times 3, and put the two radicals next to each other, the radical 5 times radical 7. Then I use some associative property to group them, the 2 and the 3 together, the radical 5 and the radical 7 together. And then I just multiply. 2 times 3 is 6, and 5 times 7 is 35, so radical 35. And I leave it there. So notice that 6 does not come inside the radical, it stays outside. As for why that is, we need to know a little more math before I can really explain that, but we will get back to that during this course. Okay, let's do another example together. But first, basically, here's what we did. We multiplied the radicands together, so what's under the radical, and we multiplied the coefficients together. So if I look at number 1 here, my coefficients are 4 and 5, so I can multiply those two together to get 20. And then I can multiply radical 3 and radical 2 together to get radical 6. And I'm done. Again, you might want to pause the video and try the next couple, or if you're not feeling super confident, then you might just kind of follow along with me for now. So here we go. Problem 2. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Radical 5 times radical 8 is radical 5 times 8, which is radical 40. And we'll stop there. Next one, I just wrote the multiplication differently. This still says 6 radical 2 times 8 radical 3. Those parentheses aren't really telling us to do anything. They're not acting as grouping symbols here. They're just acting to tell us that they're multiplication. And we know that because there's nothing really to do inside the parentheses. So, just like last time, I'll do 6 times 8, and that's 48. And radical 2 times radical 3 gives you radical 6. Last one. So it kind of looks like there's no coefficient on radical 3. Secretly, there's a 1. It's really like having 1 radical 3. In the same way, you might remember if you see an x, it's the same as 1x. But all I need to think about doing here is I know that 1 times 6 just gives me 6, and radical 3 times radical 2 gives me radical 6 again. So sometimes you want to check these on your calculator. So I thought I'd give you an example of doing that. Here's the first problem we did today underneath coefficients. We did 2 radical 5 times 3 radical 7. So one way to check your work is to enter that in your calculator. Now you'll need to know where to find the square root sign. If you're using the graphing calculator, you're going to hit your second key. It's in the upper left-hand corner. It's blue, followed by the x squared key. And the reason you hit that x squared key is because up above it in blue is a tiny square root symbol. And when you hit that second button, it activates those little blue symbols. So if I were entering this in my calculator, I would type 2 and then I would hit seconds, and then I would hit the x squared, and then I would do times, and then I would do 3, and then seconds, x squared, and then 7. And it looks like I forgot to say that over here, after that square root symbol, I should have put a 5. So that should have gone in my calculator, and it should come out to be this decimal. So that was our original problem. Now the answer we got was 6 radical 35. So on another line on your calculator, put that in. 6 seconds, x squared, 35. Or I guess 3 and then 5, right? And enter. You'll get the same decimal. So that tells me because those both gave me the same decimal, I must have done my work correctly. If I'd gotten a different decimal, then something would have gone wrong.